Motivation doesn't disappear because you're lazy. It disappears because it moves in cycles, whether you understand them or not. Most people believe motivation should be constant. They expect the same drive they feel on a good day to be available every day. When it fades, they assume something is wrong. They blame themselves, their habits, or their discipline. Hermetic philosophy offers a very different explanation, not a motivational one, a structural one. We're taught that motivation is something you generate. If it's missing, you're supposed to push harder, optimize more, or force consistency. This creates a familiar cycle. Short bursts of effort, followed by burnout, guilt, and avoidance. The harder you try to hold motivation in place, the more violently it seems to disappear. From a Hermetic perspective, this isn't a personal failure. It's a misunderstanding of how mental energy actually works. Most people don't notice this because they explain motivation psychologically. They say they lost focus, got distracted, or lacked willpower. But if you look closely, the pattern repeats even when circumstances change. New goals, new routines, same rise, same fall. Hermetic philosophy doesn't ask why motivation failed. It asks why you expected it to remain fixed in the first place. The modern model treats motivation like fuel. Use it carefully and it should last. The Hermetic model treats motivation like motion, and motion, by its nature, cannot stay still. One of the core Hermetic principles explains this directly. It's known as the Law of Rhythm. This law states that everything moves in cycles. Rise and fall, advance and retreat, expansion and contraction. Nothing stays at a peak forever. Not emotions, not focus, not confidence, not motivation. Like a pendulum, movement in one direction creates an equal movement in the opposite direction. Most people only notice the downward swing. They don't recognize it as part of a larger motion. Motivation is not a resource you own. It's a state that moves through you. When motivation is high, you're at the crest of the wave. Energy feels available. Effort feels light. Progress feels natural. But every crest contains the seed of decline. The same force that lifts you will eventually pull you downward. This is not punishment. It's balance. Trying to freeze motivation at its peak is like trying to stop the ocean mid-wave. The resistance doesn't stop the movement. It only makes the return swing harsher. This law doesn't apply only to motivation. It governs sleep, focus, emotion, confidence, even belief. Notice how clarity often follows confusion, how enthusiasm fades into doubt. What most people call inconsistency is simply unrecognized rhythm. The mistake isn't falling out of motivation. The mistake is identifying yourself with only one side of the swing. This is where forcing discipline often backfires. When motivation drops, people panic. They try to push themselves back into action, using pressure, shame, or rigid rules. But force doesn't cancel rhythm. It amplifies it. The more you push during the low phase, the deeper the next drop tends to be. Hermetic texts warn against opposing natural motion. Not because effort is bad, but because timing matters. Understanding this changes how you relate to work, goals, and progress. Think about how motivation shows up in real life. At the beginning of a project, energy feels abundant. You make plans easily. You imagine outcomes clearly. Then, without a clear reason, the feeling shifts. Effort feels heavier. Doubt becomes louder. Most people interpret this moment as a signal to stop, or worse, as proof they were never serious to begin with. From a Hermetic perspective, this moment is critical. It's where awareness replaces self-judgment. The downswing is not a command to quit. It's a request to change how you engage. Instead of expansion, you move into maintenance. Instead of intensity, you preserve structure. This is what Hermetic philosophy calls neutralization. You don't eliminate rhythm. You stop being emotionally dragged by it. Some people misunderstand this teaching. They use rhythm as an excuse to abandon effort entirely. That's not mastery. That's avoidance. Remember, Hermetic philosophy does not teach passivity. It teaches precision. You still act. You just stop demanding peak output from every moment. High phases are for initiating, planning, and expanding. Low phases are for simplifying, maintaining, and reflecting. Over time, the extremes soften. The swings narrow. Not because rhythm disappears, but because awareness reduces resistance. Motivation was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to move. Once you stop fighting its rhythm, you stop interpreting every low point as failure. And paradoxically, the waves become smoother the moment you stop resisting them. If this explanation clarified something you've struggled with, the next video breaks down why discipline feels like resistance and how Hermetic polarity explains that tension. It's linked here, and it builds directly on what you just heard.